Bootsteps ricocheted off Duracrete on every side, and Vaughan counted them from the observation gallery, 12 pairs, closing on one woman standing in the wreckage of a fake city block. The counter above the arena read 41 minutes, 19 to go before she could stop if she lived that long. Vaughan had put down 20 credits that she wouldn't survive her first month. He was about to lose that bet twice over, and somehow that felt like the least surprising thing about her. It hadn't started here. It started 8 months earlier, the day Earth signed onto the Federation, and 1 week earlier still, the day this particular human walked off a transport ship onto Outpost Vega, carrying a duffel bag half her own weight and a smile like she'd already heard the punchline to something the rest of them hadn't asked yet. Vaughan was Chromath, 8 feet of plated exoskeleton, 3,000 years of Federation service behind his people, 17 star systems that respected what a Chromath fist could do to a bulkhead. Lieutenant Kara Mills stood 5.5 feet tall and looked, by every metric his species measured, like something that would die if you frowned at it hard enough. Private Dax thought so too. So did Corporal Tyne, who decided on her first afternoon that her assigned bunk suited him better and told her to clear out. Mills didn't clear out. She listed the regulation, calm as reading a menu, and offered him a trade instead. 1 free punch, no discipline charges, no paperwork. You land it, the bunk's yours. The barracks laughed. Tyne laughed loudest, right up until his fist met empty air where her head had been a half-second earlier. He swung twice more and hit nothing both times. She wasn't dodging so much as declining to be present. On the fourth attempt, she stepped into him instead of away, and her fist found the narrow seam where a Chromath's chest plate meets its lower carapace. The sound was a single flat crack, like a rifle fired into wet stone. 400 pounds of soldier folded to the deck. The room went silent enough that Vaughan heard his own pulse. Mills crouched beside him, all the performance gone out of her voice now. You're going to be fine, breathe shallow, help's coming. She called it in herself, gave a scanner-ready account of what happened, and offered to face review before anyone asked. The medic waved it off. His pride took the worse hit, she said. Nothing a scanner can fix that. Word moved through the outpost faster than any transport could. A Threxian captain named Ball, off station for the first bout, arrived at dinner convinced the story had been exaggerated. He slammed a fist on her tray table hard enough to bounce the cutlery and demanded satisfaction in the sim room, full pane feedback, no rules. Mills asked if it could wait until she'd finished her meal. He couldn't wait, so she finished chewing anyway, stood, and walked in ahead of him. She didn't retreat from a man twice her mass. She went under him, folding low as he charged, driving an elbow into the back of his knee before climbing his falling body like a ladder. Her arm found his throat before he'd finished hitting the ground. 20 seconds later, he tapped the deck, and she released before his hand had even finished the motion. He studied her afterward like he was recalculating something. I misjudged you, Lieutenant, he said finally. It won't happen twice. By the time zero-gravity drills rolled around, the outpost had stopped betting on how long she'd last and started arguing about how she was managing any of it. Commander Grex, a Vorthak with 43 void engagements behind him, watched her tuck through a weightless spin that should have taken new officers half a year to learn, and demanded an explanation from Vaughan as if he'd have won. 6 months on an orbital defense platform was all Mills offered, along with an apology for only hitting 90% of her momentum calculations. Then came survival training, toxic air, blade-limbed predators, a world built to break humans specifically. Mills didn't just endure the environment. She field-dressed the thing that attacked her, cooked it, and reinforced her shelter with its shell plating. Real food's good for morale, she said, like that explained the knife work. Grex recommended her for advanced tactical command before her third week ended. Vaughan started keeping his own private log after that, not for command, just for himself. He wanted a record of the exact moment humans stopped being the Federation's charity case, in case anyone ever asked him to point to it. He didn't have to wait long to find it. The final evaluation was 15 soldiers against 1. Volunteers only, every one of them wanting to test themselves against the human who'd been rewriting the outpost's expectations for a month straight. Mills was given one instruction: survive an hour. She didn't wait for the 12 now closing on her position in the ruined block below. She used a collapsed doorway as a choke point, let two soldiers jam themselves trying to enter side by side, and dropped them both before they'd cleared the frame. She baited an ambush team into overextending on what looked like her own retreat, then reversed and picked them off from a flank they'd assumed was covered. By the 58-minute mark, 12 tagged bodies lay scattered across the fall street, and the last three pulled back rather than close the distance a second time. Captain Zell, the man who'd bet against her lasting a week, didn't speak for a long moment after the all-clear sounded. Then, quietly, 30 years training soldiers. I have never once watched anyone fight like that. Vaughn found her afterward on the observation deck, still catching her breath, a cup of something that smelled like scorched dirt cooling in her hands. She offered him a taste. He declined, and she laughed like she'd expected exactly that. "You've turned this whole facility on its head," he said. "Soldiers who mocked you a month ago follow you into simulations now." "That's the idea," she said. "I don't need anyone convinced humans are better. I need them convinced we're worth standing beside when it counts." "You've managed that." She turned the cup slowly in her hands, and for once the easy performance dropped out of her completely. "You want the actual secret, the part none of the briefings got right." He waited. "We're not fearless," she said. "Not for a second of any of it. Tyne could have caved my skull in on that first swing. Ball could have snapped my spine before I got a grip on him. I was terrified both times, straight through. Humans always are. We just decided a long time back that being scared isn't a good enough reason to stop moving." She looked at him directly now. "Fear doesn't get a vote. That's the whole trick. That's all of it." Vaughn had spent 3,000 years of species history believing courage meant the absence of fear. He turned that over and found he had no argument left standing against what she just handed him instead. "The Federation is fortunate to have you," he said. "We're fortunate to have all of you," she answered. "Different strengths make the whole structure harder to break. That's worth more than any one of us alone." Below the deck, the training yard lights shut off section by section, and in the dark that spread behind them Vaughn could just make out a shape still moving on the empty ground, Tyne, running the same elbow strike Mills had used against him, over and over, alone, until his landing finally stopped shaking. Vaughn watched him a long moment before he closed the log in his hand. Whatever he'd expected to write about humans when this posting began, it hadn't been this.